Welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments, the best growth mindset podcast recognized by Million Podcasts and ranked as a top mindset podcast by FeedSpot. We're proud to be in the top 1% on Listen Notes. Join Dr. Alisa Whyte as we explore powerful insights and strategies to elevate your mindset. Let's dive in.
Hello, disruptors, and welcome back to Mindset Mastery Moments. I am your host, of course, Dr. Alisa Whyte, and today, family, we are learning and we're getting into a conversation that is both real and revolutionary. Here's what we know. Trauma is everywhere. Research tells us that nearly 70% of adults worldwide has lived through at least one traumatic event. And in the USA alone, about 1 in every 3 women and 1 in 5 men experience sexual violence in their lifetime. You see, trauma doesn't just sit in the past, it echoes. It shows up in our memory, in our bodies, and in how we love, how we lead, how we see ourselves. But here's hope. There is hope. Trauma doesn't just get the final word. Resilience does. And resilience and healing and transformation is possible. My guest today is living proof. Melissa Osorio is a transformational speaker, a best-selling author, and a mental health ambassador. Her story is one of courage, surviving childhood trauma, navigating emotional detachment, and battling self-doubt. And yet, here's my favorite part, into a life filled with purpose, she rises with passion. She is the author of a book called Hidden Memories, a book that doesn't just share her journey, but invites us into our own. With raw honesty, Melissa speaks about the power of memory, the role of vulnerability, and even how plant medicine and psychedelics are reshaping the future of trauma healing. Melissa, we are so excited to have you on Mindset Master Moments. Welcome to the show. I am honored to have you here today. Your journey is going to free so many of us who are carrying pain in silence. I cannot wait for our listeners to lean into your wisdom. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, Melissa. So we're going to let you tell us who you are, what you do, and why you do it. So tell us, Melissa, who are you, what you do, and why you do it?
Well, thank you for that amazing introduction. I was originally born in Venezuela, so I'm Venezuelan, and I spent the first 16 years of my life in that country. I like to say that my family was, from the outside, a picture perfect family, right? We're familiar with those. You have the husband that does well in business, the pretty wife, and the many cute children. I believed until 4 years ago that I must have had a happy childhood because I couldn't remember it. And I didn't know at all that not remembering your childhood is a big sign scientifically that something happened there that your brain that was overwhelming enough for the child that your brain needed to protect you. So I go through my life, at 16, I suffer from what up to that moment I thought will be the most difficult loss of my life. And that was my father was murdered. So he was murdered in Venezuela. And I finished high school a few months after and I moved to the US. I moved to the US on my own. My mom came afterwards. I was effectively running away from the country that killed my father. But more than that, I didn't realize that at the moment I was running away from everything that I survived when I was a kid. So I moved to the US and I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I have been going with my father to his businesses all my childhood. So I moved to the US, I started some businesses, I married a handsome guy, we do well in business. So again, I had what looked like the picture perfect house from the outside, but inside it was not picture perfect at all. Our relationship was full of strife and it really lacked any real love or real intimacy. He also had a super cute little boy. He was almost 4 when we married. When I was in that marriage, which lasted 8 years, I carried the weight of inadequacy because I couldn't love that little boy. In fact, not only did I not love him, but I didn't want to be in the same room that him or any other child. Like I carried this in my subconscious that said children did not belong with adults. Clearly makes no sense, but for me, it was so engraved in my soul that I will physically get sick when I will be asked or forced to hang out with this cute little boy or with, other children. And as we often do, I never questioned these things. I
Mm,
never questioned the fact that I continuously isolated myself. I had no friends. When I got married, in order to cope, I became sort of like a functional alcoholic, like drinking 1 or 2 bottles of wine a day. Earlier in my life, I really struggled with bulimia for 5 years.
mm,
In my teenage, early 20 years, as for 5 years, I was bulimic. And again, I didn't question it. Like the only thought is, what's wrong with me? Why am I bulimic? Why can I not be with children? Why don't I have a maternal instinct? Why am I drinking in excess? Never once did I ask myself, what happened to me that is pushing my nervous system to try to find balance with all of these tools. So then I was, in the US, finally, I decided that I reached a bottom of sadness in my marriage, and there was nothing that could take it away. Not beautiful trips, not expensive hotels, no amount of money in the bank account, not the pretty house. And I reached that point of breaking point of I need to leave my marriage. And then, I thought that was going to be the problem. And then once I separated from this man, I thought, okay, now I can be happy. And it,
yeah.
it got better. It got better. But as things have it, right? And, as the universe will have it, or God, whatever you believe in, we always get people in our lives that come in to help us grow or teach us something.
Mirror.
So a couple of other guys arrived in my life that triggered so many wounds I didn't know I have. So
Mm,
finally, I did spiral to almost rock bottom. I mean, my physical health was declining rapidly.
mhm.
My mental health was really, really declining. I was drinking like excessive amounts of alcohol, and still I believe there was nothing wrong with me. Finally. Oh, and I drank the self-help Kool-Aid. I was trying, like I went to like Robbins, like for a whole year. I read all the books, and it was helpful. But I realized,
It's not
like
been
so
a
many
breakthrough.
people, right? We're putting in the work, but the results are not there. So I realized, wow, I need to do something extreme because this is not helping.
Mhm.
And in my Tony Robbins seminars, I had heard of a place in Costa Rica where you could go to heal your heart. And that stuck with me. But it took me 2 years from the moment I heard about this place until the moment I was ready to go. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you why. It's a South American upbringing.
Mm.
Why? Because I grew up in a very religious household.
Yes.
And anything that was extraordinary, it must have been by default demonic.
Demonic.
Like it had, it
See,
had to be black magic,
you listen,
right? It had
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, and what it was really lack of information. But anyhow, I really got to a rock bottom point where I said, this is it. If I don't do this, I'm not going to be alive. Like
Right.
I'm not in a good path.
Right.
So I fly down to Costa Rica to this beautiful center. It's called Rhythmia Life Advancement Center. And my life got destroyed.
Mm,
It got destroyed initially. But I'm sure you can identify and listeners can identify with the fact that when you are very much off track on who you're supposed to be,
mhm.
destruction has to happen
Yes.
for you to rebuild yourself from scratch.
Yes. Yes.
So this beautiful place helped me do that with a non-traditional approach to mental health. And it changed so much my life. I mean, I say often jokingly that if I was a pancake, I was flipped. Because, like I was a different Melissa when I entered through those gates than when I left.
Yeah.
And it only got better and better.
Mm,
So in this particular place, which by the way, I am immensely grateful because I'm one of the teachers and coaches there in this place. So I get to see week in and week out. First, when people arrive, I see myself in their faces, their anxiety, their wounds, their pain, their silence, their story. And then only 7 days later, I see myself in their faces, their healing, their hope, their remembrance. So it's a beautiful place to be at. And the non-traditional treatment that is used over there, that is becoming more and more accepted around the world, is a natural medicine, plant medicine that is called ayahuasca.
Yes. Wow. Ooh, we're going to have to talk some more about ayahuasca because I've been hearing about it too. So, what an amazing journey. I know my partner talks about glow sticks. I didn't grow up with glow sticks, but he did. And he did this video one time about a glow stick. It comes and it's just a white stick, right? And you have to shake it, and then you have to break it. And then is when the glow comes on the stick, right? And as you were describing your journey and the way you even have this radiant glow on you, even as we're sitting here on recording this podcast, and of course your photos are beautiful, but it's way more than the beauty of your outer appearance. You have like this glow that comes off of you, right? And as you were speaking, I'm like, this is it. This is what that glow stick is when he talks about, your life is like that. Sometimes you have to be shaken and you have to go through the breaking. And then is when that glows. So your journey there just describes that to me. So Melissa, I would love to ask you, at what point did you know I can't live like this anymore? Something has to change. What did that feel like for you when you talk about resilience? What does that word now mean to you when you speak of resilience?
Well, resilience is, I often compare it to a superpower
Mm,
that we all have. And it's a beautiful superpower. And the more we practice it, the more it grows.
mm-hmm,
So, resilience to me is the ability to bounce back from challenges.
mm,
When something that I never considered, but that became very obvious, and I know if people maybe look at their lives in this lens, they will see some similarities, is that throughout our lives, we face difficulties, right? And we complain about these difficulties, we struggle in these difficulties, but we always get through them. One
mm-hmm,
way or another, we get through them. To me, those difficulties are like pop quizzes.
mm,
They're pop quizzes strengthening our resilience muscle. So later in life, if we face something that is bigger, harder, more difficult to get through, if we have strengthened our resilience muscle, we bounce back quicker. So that is exactly what happened to me in my life. I faced difficulties, right? I grew up in a household, where I survived the most horrific form of betrayal
mm,
that a child can ever survive,
mm,
which is the hidden memories, that came up in my ayahuasca treatment.
yeah.
So I survived this betrayal. Then my father gets murdered.
Mm,
Then there is a move to a foreign country. Then there is a struggle with bulimia, with a marriage, with alcoholism, with feelings of inadequacy. So all of that prepared me for that arrival in Costa Rica,
yeah.
because what I had to face that week was extremely devastating. It was extremely difficult. And I like to say that when I arrived at arrhythmia, if someone will have asked me, what will you do if you get cancer? I will say, you know what, I'll just give up. I will give up.
Yeah, that would
I
be
had this
enough.
belief that didn't make sense, right?
Mm,
But what I discovered is that we really cannot tell with absolute certainty how we will react when we're faced with something that is really devastating. And because of the pop quizzes that I experienced during my life, when I was faced with the retrieval of my childhood memories in that week in Costa Rica, I discovered that my soul was a warrior soul, that I did
mm,
not give up, that I really, really decided that I deserved an extraordinary life, no matter what, that it was my birthright. And I took steps day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, to be able to claim that birthright.
yes. So powerful. So powerful. And in your best-selling book, Hidden Memories, you unpack the connection between memory and trauma. And this is something that's very, very personal to me as well. Neuroscience shows that trauma can actually alter the brain, which I've endured, particularly the hippocampus, which stores memory, in the amygdala, which controls fear. For many, that means reliving pain over and over again. Can you share how understanding memory, Melissa, helped you unlock your own healing and why this is such a crucial piece for anyone in the recovery journey. Ayahuasca and how that played a part in helping you recovering those memories and healing.
Thank you for asking this question. I think it's super important because when I started to recover memories, I didn't know it was possible, right? Most of us are not versed in mental health. I had taken a couple of psychology classes in the university. I don't remember ever going into specifics of memory and trauma, you know?
No, not at
I picked
all.
up a couple of books,
Yeah.
and it was hard to find something that I could understand and resonate with, which is one of the reasons why I decided to write my book. So the way I'll give you an illustration, right, that I like to give to explain this. So imagine your brain as a building and a traumatic memory as a fire breaking, just a fire that is happening in your building. So the hippocampus is meant to be like the secretary of the building that is meant to take notes, record the emergency, say how, what's happening. But the hippocampus, the secretary, goes into panic and there is no record. The pages get tear up, like they get mumbled up, like there is no record of this. The
Yeah.
amygdala is the fear center of the brain, and the
Yeah.
amygdala is sounding the alarm and is making these sprinklers, bathe your entire brain with water, which is cortisol, right?
Yes.
So everything in the brain becomes a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Your rational brain, that is meant to be like the manager, the supervisor, that is meant to lead everybody to safety, is the first one out the door as soon as the fire starts.
Yes.
So now your brain is in complete disarray, right? So what ayahuasca does as a substance and as a very intelligent natural substance is it actually does the opposite in your brain that trauma chemically and scientifically. So it comes into your brain, into your nervous system, and it increases the activity of your hippocampus. So you call back in that librarian, and whatever pages he was able to manage to save, now you have access to them.
To the data,
Then
yeah.
the fear center, your amygdala, that is like the sprinklers going off. The ayahuasca turns off the sprinklers. So now there is not so much fear
There's no
as when the
beeping,
episode
noise, no
happened.
water everywhere.
Correct,
All of that's going down.
correct. And then your rational brain comes back online. So ayahuasca increases the connection between your memory center and your rational brain. And because the fear is lowered in your amygdala, then you're able to process trauma without the initial impact of the emotions. Because ultimately, the key to all of these is that trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what you experience that happened to you. So it's your ideas and experiences of whatever the episode that you went through
Right.
is. So
Right.
that is what trauma is. So once you're able to start remembering the memories, the traumatic memories don't get stored the same way than a regular memory. And this is also super crucial because if you think of the hippocampus, the librarian, he didn't store the memory like you going to a baseball game. And then the memory center, the hippocampus is like, and then I had a hot dog, and then I had a beer, and then they scored 3 runs, right? That's a normal memory. And when you recall that game, you're going to recall where you were sitting.
Yeah.
You're going to recall what you were drinking, even maybe what you were wearing. Now, a traumatic memory is only stored with emotions. Sometimes there are flashback of images, there's sounds, right? But the
Yeah.
emotions, what these images and these sounds cause in your body, that's how memories from trauma get stored. And that's how they come up as well. And trauma is really stored as unprocessed emotions. So what causes a traumatic episode is not necessarily the experience, it's if you were able to process the experience.
Yeah.
Like, for example, 2 different people can get in a car crash, but one person is actually super zen, super collected. They don't freak out. They know that they're going to be okay. They have faith. They calm themselves down. The other person is in a manic attack. The person that didn't handle it with kindness and softness, that person is going to have a trauma. A traumatic memory that they're going to have to clear off their body. The other one might just remember it as a memory that is disturbing. That's it.
Yeah.
So those are the main differences, right? Of how we store the memories of trauma and then how we retrieve them.
Mm.
So with ayahuasca medicine, you retrieve the memories of trauma by feeling the emotions that were initially experienced
Ah.
during the traumatic episode. And by feeling them, you heal them. I'm sure you have heard the expression, you have to feel it to heal it.
Feel it. Yes, feel it at 100 is what I say 100. Yeah, when you go to that 100
Yes,
percentile of that feeling, then you can heal it. If
correct.
you just give little wins
Correct.
and
But
windows, yeah.
I want to make the clarification as well, because people are like, oh my gosh, no, there's no way I want to feel like I felt back then, right? But here's the beauty of it, because your fear center is lowered in your brain, like the activity is lower in your amygdala, then you're processing the emotions without being re-traumatized, without the initial intensity. You're processing them as an observer of the emotion. There is a capacity to process that you wouldn't have in a regular mind state, for example. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, life-changing process.
Yes, it is. My goodness. So, why do you feel and believe that psychedelics may hold the key for future trauma therapy? I mean, obviously, you've lived it,
Because,
but
yeah. So, well, I know that they work. I know they're effective. The center where I work, we have seen 18,000 people. 18,000 people. So we have the stats to know scientifically how effective it can be, right? Like this is not, it's no woo woo anymore.
no.
Like we have
Yeah.
the stats where 73% of the people that come there report 6 months later that they don't have suicidal thoughts anymore,
Yeah.
that they don't have alcoholism problems or addictions anymore.
Yeah.
Scientifically, the data is there.
Yeah, they're showing 70 to 80% effectiveness.
Yeah. From a personal perspective, they work because they are intelligent medicines. And let me explain that.
Mhm.
So, if you take an aspirin, say you have a headache and you take an aspirin, you know what the outcome is going to be. The
Mhm.
headache will go away because
Yeah.
that's what the aspirin does. That's
Yeah.
the only thing it does. It
Right.
numbs that symptom.
It numbs the
When you
symptom.
take a natural substance like ayahuasca, you don't know what's going to happen because it's an intelligent medicine. So it actually tailors whatever is happening in your body to you and your particular case. And I can
Ah.
tell you, for example, in our weeks in the center that I teach at, we have anywhere from 60 to 80 people every week.
Mhm.
And they're taking the same brew. They're taking the same brew of ayahuasca that is drank like a thick tea. And every person is having a personalized treatment plan. Every
Mm.
person is healing their own experiences in the way that works for them.
Yes.
So they are extremely intelligent medicines. I give an example often because let me define what ayahuasca is, right? For people that are not very familiar with it. So ayahuasca is a mix of two plants, a vine and a plant. You mix them together and they produce like it's sort of like a milkshake kind of thing. It's like a milkshake substance. Doesn't taste great, so it's a milkshake substance that increases the amount of DMT in your brain and your body. So DMT is a psychedelic compound that we all have in our brain. It
We already
happens
have it.
naturally. We
Ah,
have it. So what ayahuasca does is just increase
the
the amount
function.
of DMT that you have in your brain.
Mm.
So if you think of a regular plant, say, like the one behind me here, the plant is smart. Like it grabs water and it takes the nutrients that it needs, and there is oxygen and sunlight. I compare it to maybe the level of intelligence, if, to simplify it, of a cockroach, right? Now you have ayahuasca. Ayahuasca does a lot more than what this plant behind me does. I
Ah,
compare the intelligence of ayahuasca to the intelligence of a dolphin.
wow.
So that's an easy way to understand that in the plant kingdom, there are different levels of
Yeah.
intelligence.
Yes.
And ayahuasca, mushrooms, San Pedro, peyote, they're natural plants that have a much higher level of intelligence than that people realize.
That's interesting. I always thought they had something, they had their own lives going on. I always thought plants, I mean, I think we're still uncovering. It's such a life source to begin with. One of the things I love about your work, Melissa, is that you champion vulnerability. So many people see it as a weakness, but you say it's actually the doorway to authentic healing, which I completely agree with. Why is opening up, especially about trauma, so powerful? And not just for us, but for the people around us as well. If you can touch on that.
There is something that is important to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Society is really encouraging everybody to not show emotions from the moment that we're born, right? Don't cry, don't do that,
Don't feel bad.
whatever it
It's
is.
okay.
Yeah, be
It's
a
gonna
good
be all
girl, be a
right.
good boy.
Yes.
It's like they're encouraging us to not show emotions.
Yes.
So what happens is most people are walking through life screaming in the inside.
Mm,
They're screaming because they're hurting. They're screaming because they suffer from trauma in their childhood that they never process. They're screaming because they feel alone. They're screaming because they don't know how to be happy. So, what true vulnerability allows is for a symphony of healing to happen when we allow ourselves to voice our sadness, to voice our pain, to tell our story. And true healing can only happen when we acknowledge it first and when we're able to really find the strength within ourselves to know that it's okay to be vulnerable, to know that we don't always have to be strong, to know that the doorway to real healing of our heart is authenticity and sharing from an authentic place. And what sharing does, in my case, for example, it has been a beautiful healing balm to be able to share with my book, Hidden Memories. Because when we share, we finish processing our pain, our difficulties, but we're also opening the door for other people to share their story, to identify. We give them permission to be human. So when we share, other people feel that they're safe to also share, that they're not alone. Like, for example, I talk openly about what I survived in my childhood, which was incest.
mm.
And incest is one of the most common things that happen behind closed doors.
Yes. In
It's a
all
silent
cultures.
epidemic
Yes.
that is destroying children, families, and adults. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a cycle.
Yes.
So the abuser almost always has been abused.
Yes.
And this is not to condone an abuser. This is to understand that it's a cycle and that's the way it is. When someone abuses, they have been abused themselves and they didn't have the strength, the tools, or the support to break the cycle. So
Yes.
it is our responsibility now in these changing times when we have access to psychedelic medicine, when we have access to open communications, it's our responsibility to heal ourselves so we can break the cycles going back and also going forward for the children that
Mm-hmm.
are coming.
Yes. Yes. So, so true. It is a cycle, and some of them don't even remember that it's occurred, but they know they're perpetrators. And so it's almost like, and it's so common across all cultures. And the more I listen to what's in mainstream media right now, it's almost where it seems like society, I don't say we, but there's a general, like, they're starting to find ways to normalize it. And I'm not comfortable with that at all. So, Melissa, we do a segment here that's called Flip the Script. It's where we ask you of a moment that you truly had to flip the script. I mean, you've shared so many already. If there's another one you want to share with us, when you had to flip the script of your mindset, what shifted and how it changed everything for you?
Hey, seems the thing dropped, but I waited for the upload to happen. So
Yes, it says that.
it uploaded.
Yes, it is. And it says Melissa has Riverside open in 2 tabs. So you might want to close one.
Okay, so let me close the old one.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it
so
upload. Okay,
we should be fine right where it cut off because I was just
perfect.
asking my question and I didn't stop the recording. I just let it sit so
Okay.
it doesn't go into 2 parts. It happens. And that's the one thing why I tell podcasters, I'm like, this is why I use Zoom because this is so much easier and nicer for production, but it uses a lot of bandwidth. So if like your computer memory is low or the internet gets any funny, this doesn't sustain, but Zoom will sustain anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, but we saved it because it cut actually in a good moment.
yes, and it shows that I have it all up to date. So I was like, okay, I'll just wait for her. I was just going to call you and say, oh, just come on when you're ready. I'm waiting. All right. So
Perfect.
I'll ask my question and we'll pick up because that's right where we were. So,
Okay.
Melissa, thank you so much for that. I am telling you that it's so powerful. So many individuals are going to take from that understanding. Number one, you walked us through how these new, it seems new, but honestly, I believe that the use of these types of medicine is very old. It's just been hidden from us in order for some of the newer more imitation products to have its reign. But now we're back to it. I think it's a return, it's a remembrance of what our body used to heal. I'm pretty sure your and my grandparents just went outside and got some and made it and had tea. And they were using it in South America. So we do flip the script, Melissa. This is where you share with us a time, as if you haven't done enough of that already, when you literally had to shift your mindset. What changed and how did everything turn out?
It will have to be, I'll tell you specifically the moment.
Yes.
I was laying on this mattress in Costa Rica in this trauma healing center, life advancement center. An image flashed in front of my eyes. And I recognized what the image was. I knew it was actually present in my conscious awareness my entire life, but I had made an explanation for it. But in that moment, I knew what the image signified. And every cell in my body carried the weight of remembrance. And this is something that I want to stress for listeners. The brain routinely and very often hides memories of trauma, but that doesn't mean that the trauma is gone. It's stored in your cells. Your body is a
Mm.
library of information. So, in that moment, when the conditions in my brain were prime for memory retrieval, thanks to ayahuasca medicine, my body remembered. Every cell in my body knew my whole childhood story. Not in
Mm.
every detail, but in the general arc of what happened in my childhood. And
Yes.
in that moment, I experienced a real emotional death in a way. It's the
Mm.
destruction that I spoke to you about in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I went into a bit of a panic, like I went through the 5 stages of grief in an instant, right? The denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression. And at some point, to your question, the mindset shift was I claimed my right to know what happened to me so I could heal it. So I brought myself back from that desperation state, right, with the support of the helpers in this trauma healing center.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to restart my life right there and then, not because I was healed, not because I had all the answers, far from it, but
Mm-hmm.
because I chose to remember what had happened to me, not to be re traumatized, not to be a victim, but so I could heal it. And when
Mm-hmm.
the mindset shifted from "I cannot believe this happened to me" to "I
And
want
yeah.
to know so
Yes.
I can heal it, so I can have a real chance at happiness." And many times people live through their lives not knowing why they're unhappy, not knowing why they have these quirks, right, that they cannot explain,
Yeah.
and not knowing why their identity, who they have claimed to be, doesn't seem to fit who they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're able to really understand that all those traits and those emotions we cannot explain have an origin, and when we know what the origin is, we are able to be compassionate with ourselves because all of a sudden we are not broken anymore.
Yeah.
Something happened to us
Mm-hmm.
that caused our nervous system, our brain, and our
To
body to
protect us
develop
the
an
way they.
identity to
Yes.
survive that is not who we
Yes.
are. It's who we
Right.
needed to be.
It's who we, yes. Ooh, I love that. And I have a quote I just posted a few weeks ago to say, don't hold on to who you have to become to stay in survival. It's
Mm-hmm.
necessary to heal so you can live finally. And that is
Yes.
my thought. I just looked at it because I seen patterns that I've had to drop over the course of my life. And those were there because my body kept score and it was trying to protect me. You know what I'm saying? It was trying to protect me. And so I'm not afraid no more, is what I tell the different parts of me that was in these journey of traumas, better words to say. I would say the hurt parts of me when I was 14 or 15 or even younger, the disappointment, the fear. As she went through this journey, the woman I am now, she went through this journey. There were times she had these protective gauges and barriers that needed to come up. But I don't need her. So I tell her, I said, okay, Alisa, I heard you. Because I had the memory loss where I had a memory loss. I literally did and didn't have my memories. And I think what I did have damaged tissues in my brain, Melissa, but I believe part of it was what happened to you as well. It blanked it out as well. I think it was a combination. Back then, they didn't talk about it that way. But now we kind of know science shows that it was part and parcel of both me protecting myself and then also the injury combination. They said I had these damaged tissues, they couldn't repair it. But I know that I end up remembering. And as I remember, it was very, very hard for me. And I didn't really, I had, lucky for me, blessed and favored, I would say, in Guyana, South America, to have a psychiatrist, which is not very normal. And that helped me to work through and understand. And that's why I'm so passionate and compassionate about people healing and understanding. Yes, there are different degrees, as you and I were talking about, of how trauma can affect people. But for me, I just know that there's still times in my recent years when some of their things were just now surfacing. And I would
Mm-hmm.
just remind her, the younger version of me, I hear you, I see you, and thank you for reminding me. Now let me work on it with you so we can heal it. And so it's like my body just let me go on and just heal parts of it for a while and then let it come up. But what I'm hearing you say that we are probably all questioning is at the trauma center and with ayahuasca, you're saying it's like a shortened process. Is that
Absolutely.
what I'm hearing? Because that's what I want to
Yes.
dig into.
Ayahuasca is an accelerated path to healing.
Mm.
People compare, people that come compare 10 years of talk therapy with one ayahuasca session. Why?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing
Because,
because I'm like, come on now.
well, the interesting part is, and by the way, you've done really good work with processing the emotions, and you're
Well,
touching on something that's super important, though.
yeah.
The last, like the most entrained, like the most difficult part to really process is the one that gets stored in the body, not in the brain, right? So what talk therapy does is allows you to process what you remember with your brain. What ayahuasca does is it processes out of your body. So it's an accelerated path to healing. So for example, when people come to Rhythmia, there are three clear intentions for everybody that the plant medicine ayahuasca helps them with. The first one is to see more clearly who they have become in order to survive. Right? Sometimes people come and they know they're a people pleaser or they're a control freak or whatever it is, but the medicine shows them more clearly. It helps them see it. Then the second intention is once they understand that those were tools for survival, then they're able to merge back with their true essence, with a
Mm.
little boy or little girl before distortions, before any coping mechanisms had to be acquired. And then the last intention is the healing of their heart. So once we know who we've become, but we realize that's not us, we're able to let go and forgive and release any masks that we've been wearing in order to survive, then
Yes.
naturally our body self heals. And that is a healing of the heart, which usually feels like bliss, like love. Many times, a kind of love and peace that people have never experienced before in their lives. And that is the reason for that is that they're processing trauma out of their cells.
Yes. And for me, ayahuasca would have been great because there are photos of me, just a couple on social media and people who watch my journey. I'm being told in the last maybe 3, 4, maybe 6 years how I've been aging backwards. But what they don't know, it's the level of trauma and repeated reinforced trauma that my cells were holding in my body while I
Mhm.
had been healing and working on the healing of my mind. my body was still keeping score. And then I was in certain environments that reinforced my body to keep suppressing what was there from the childhood pain so I can maintain what was happening in adulthood. As you spoke earlier about the alcoholism, I may not have done that, but I went through certain things that was traumatic. It demonstrates in different ways. I became an overachiever, hypo pleaser, you name it. Either way, that's why I say when we talk about addictions, name it, which one, right? Because you will do it as a way. And so my skin got darker, Melissa, and I was swollen. Like, it was not just fat because my weight did not explain my size. I was swollen and my skin was darker. And now that my body is releasing, you're starting to see like I'm going back to when I was 18. But really what it is, this is what I'm supposed to look like had all that crazy stuff had not been locked in me. The trauma had not been locked in me. So now I'm just looking like I would have aged, where 10 years ago, I look way older.
Amazing. And you got it. That's exactly what it is. Like trauma causes illnesses.
Disease.
Trauma
Yes.
causes decline in our health. Trauma causes weight gain.
Yes.
Trauma causes autoimmune diseases.
Yes.
So many things are caused by trauma that is not processed. And if you think about it, it makes sense. What is trauma again? Is emotions that get stuck in the body.
Yes.
And the body has to overcompensate in order to keep on going.
So it breaks all the
creates a
systems
lot of extra strain in the immune system. So when you're healing trauma, you're actually not only healing it mentally, you're healing it from your entire body. And the brain rewires itself, it rewrites itself. So you're never bound to an identity or to a traumatic experience, because as you have demonstrated as well, you're able to rewrite your brain. And there are many different avenues to do that. Like many different avenues. What you've been doing is amazing. It has obviously been helpful and working. Then people use breath work. Breath work is also a beautiful tool. Plant medicines is an accelerated path to healing.
I love it. And so that is why Dr. Alisa Whyte is investigating and studying and learning about the use of ayahuasca and even other psychedelics and how. And I believe that if I would say this to anyone, it's worth looking into. I'm telling you, save yourself 10 years of waiting to be the best version of yourself by exploring whether these types of treatments would be worth it, because time is so limited. As much as it's here and we feel like we have forever, the quality of your life matters. And so I advocate that you do whatever needs to be done to release and heal ASAP so you can go through the rest of your life as the best of your life. Okay, so that is shameless plug. Melissa, you have to tell us how to connect with you, because you're going to be back. This is the completion of the first episode, but it's to be continued with you.
Yeah. So, I love to encourage people to transform their lives if they're unhappy in their lives, and I'm more than happy to always answer any questions about ayahuasca, about the specific center that I now teach in. Is the largest in the world, is medically supervised, because every time I talk about these type of treatments, I also really put in a very strong warning. And that warning is, where you go participate in these treatments will define your experience. So it's very important that people understand that this is not something to be taken lightly, that going to a place that they get support, they feel safe, medically supervised, will make all of the difference in their experience.
Right.
So they can, if they're interested in learning about ayahuasca trauma, how the process works, I go in detail in my book. So Hidden Memories, Discover What's Blocking You from Life and Love is available in English and Spanish in Amazon, and it's available in English in Audible. So that is a great step. Then the next step is they can go to my website, and in my website, they'll find, the link to the book. They'll find the link to my Instagram. They can send me a message on Instagram. And my website is just my name, Melissa, Melissa dash Osorio, Osorio
Absolutely. Well, listen, disruptors, Melissa, thank you so much for your courage, your honesty, and your willingness to speak light in places where so many are still sitting in silence. Your story reminds us that no matter how deep the pain, we definitely can rise, we can heal, and we can step into our purpose. And listen, disruptors, I want you to go grab Melissa's book, Hidden Memories. It's not just a book, it's really a tool and a roadmap. And she said it is available on Audible. So you really don't have an excuse because you can be listening to it while you're on the treadmill, while you're going for your walk, because you better be walking. Go to Melissa_Osorio.com. Or is it dash? Melissa dash. It's in the, don't listen to me, but go to the description wherever you're listening or watching this episode. And you can also follow her on Instagram and TikTok at Melissa_Osorio_. Remember, it's all there in the description. You'll have a link to the book on Amazon. And as always, don't just keep this conversation for yourself. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that healing is possible. Talk to Melissa, DM her, let her know you heard her here. Until next time, this is my co-host, Melissa, and I saying, keep mastering your mindset. Think, speak, do, and you will become.